You're tuned into the Growth Ceilings podcast, the show for builders, dreamers, and leaders ready to break limits and grow beyond what they thought possible.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Growth Ceilings podcast. I'm your host, Jim Lovelady, professional EOS implementer. EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Today, I'm joined by Stephen Ng, who's Senior Director of Global Support and Customer Advocacy at Splashtop, and he's currently also the president of HDI San Francisco Bay Area. Stephen has more than 25 years of experience leading global support organizations at companies like Arlo, Good to Go, and Extreme Networks. He's built and led teams that balance efficiency, empathy, and innovation, serving customers around the world in industries where reliability and trust really matter. Stephen, it's great to have you on the show, and better yet, it's great to reconnect with you. For the audience, Stephen and I worked together in a prior life, going back about 15, 16 years ago. We both worked for an email marketing software company called Lyris. Stephen, great to see you again.
Well, Jim, thanks for having me. It is great to reconnect. It's been almost over a decade or so, I guess. Yeah,
16 years. I go back to 2010. Yeah, you were at Lyris for a couple of years before I joined. What was your role at Lyris?
I ran the support team, so I helped build out the team. We had a couple of company mergers as well, so we were able to. It was part of chartering how to scale the support organization and support our customers.
And I joined the company in 2010 as its sales leader, as VP of Sales and Marketing, and was there for just under 2 years. Great to reconnect with you, Stephen. So let's dive into it, okay?
Sounds good.
So you've spent your career leading customer support teams across industries and continents. What first drew you to the service and support side of technology?
For me, it's kind of like the journey, right? Yeah, I was an individual contributor. I was an engineer, and then you kind of do the technical side of things. You get to a point where you get your boss to kind of tap you on the shoulder, say, well, you're on the top of the 9 box now. So where are you going to go? And do you want to be an architect, or do you want to, lead people? So I was kind of interested in hey, why not try to see what I can do with being the management side of it. So that continued on. So that's my journey. But of all things, I've always been a service of people, right? Service of providing good service. So from being an engineer, providing that kind of service, to staying in support and in kind of services, professional services, to be able to always support our customers.
When I worked for General Electric back in the 90s, I was there for just under 8 years. We had a tool called a 9 box as well. And the box was designed on an axis of promotability and productivity. And you wanted to be in the top upper right box. Anybody in the lower left corner was susceptible to layoffs, if not dismissed altogether. And we used that 9 box religiously at General Electric. Is that what you're talking about?
That's it. It's the standard 9 box, right? Where some people have a different iterations or interpretations of it, where you look at productivity versus, leadership. So most people in the journey, right? You have 9 boxes, but it's kind of the 1, 5, and the 9. The 1 is either you're on the cusp of either it's new to the role, or you're the bottom 10%, right? 80% usually is in the 5 box, where productivity, leadership, it's kind of, you're in the bread and butter of the curve. And then your top performers ready to get promoted, they're in your 9 box, where they're high production, high leadership, and they're ready to move on in their growth path. So that's just the kind of industry standard 9 box matrix that we use for calibrations.
So I'm going to add these up as we go along here. So we worked together at Lyris, and then we've got 9 box experience. That's great. We'll keep adding them up.
Got it. That's it. When you've been in this industry, right, for a long time, paths and methodologies they commingle together at some point.
Yep. So you often use the phrase customer advocacy. What does that mean to you, and how is it different from traditional support?
If you look at customer advocacy, it's basically how do you enable your customers to do what they need to get done in a manner of success, right? So that's where you're trying to advocate them. You want to be their voice. Most times, and I'm not going to knock you because you're in sales, But salespeople, right, you're going to bring the customer, the prospect in. Once they're in, it's usually the support, your account manager, your customer success team. They're the one who are engaging with the customer at that point because they're now a customer. And our job is to making sure they continue to be successful, utilizing the solutions that they were sold on, right? So that's what customer advocacy is for, is listening to the customer, making sure that whatever their challenges are, whatever their business use cases or needs are, my job or my organization's job is to help and leverage those needs and with our tools be able to make them successful as much as possible. So that's what we're fighting for the customers.
Excellent. And I always use the fishing analogy with sales teams where on the business development side, our job is almost like fishing. Our job is to bait the hook, put it out there in the water, troll for a little while, get some bites. Oh, you got somebody on the hook and you reel them in and you close the business. And when you get that fish on the hook, you stand on the dock, you take a big picture. Quickly, you unhook it and toss it over the wall, and that's where you are to catch that fish. And then you're going to fillet it and cook it and take care of it and serve it up later on. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. I'm more gentle. I would say salespeople are more of the connectors.
There you go.
Instead of you're not just baiting them, but you're connecting people, right?
Yes.
Us, and you're trying to just, it's almost like a dating site, right? You kind of, do you swipe right or left, and then you can kind of bring them all together, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but most times, if it's the right solution in the right case, use cases, we get that connection, and that's what salespeople do.
I'm sticking with my fish analogy because if I demonstrate any proficiency with dating sites, my wife is listening in the background, so I don't want any problems. Okay,
I get it. I get it too. But you know what I mean. It's
I
you're
do.
connecting. You're connectors, right? You're basically making sure that the prospects, so the people and the organizations, you're connecting with our solution. Is it the right fit? And most times it can be, and sometimes they're not, and that's okay too.
Let's talk about your solutions. So Splashtop plays a big role in enabling remote work. How has that shaped your approach to managing a global team and keeping customers connected?
It is kind of crazy, right? To look at, because we did have something called the pandemic that kind of thrust the entire work from home, remote work into a different perspective. And that's where our software, our solutions allows not only individuals to be able to work remotely, effectively, and efficiently, but it also enables your IT organization and support teams to be able to support your remote work. Before, you remember the day, we're going to date ourselves now. Back in the day, we were always in the office, right?
Yes.
But you may get that one organization that, like, on Friday, you can either be casual Friday or work remotely from home. And then that was like a big perk that you were gotten, work remote one day. But even that one day, it was logistically a nightmare because either you're going to ask your IT team to either have a VPN connection, so you're going to need provisioning, licensing, or something, security, to have your remote worker work that one day remotely. Fast forward 30 years later, this is where we're at Splashtop enable workers to be able to work remotely securely and have the high performance that you're sitting in front of at your workstation or your desk or your office. And then you have IT organizations be able to provision, manage, support all these remote workers distributed around the country, around the world. That allows us to be able to do that at a high level and securely.
I can relate to progression of remote work or what it is today. Go back to when we worked together at Lyris. Do you realize I was in Chicago, but I had to travel to San Francisco every week? I would leave Chicago on Sunday night. I would return on Thursday night. In 2011, I did over 177,000 miles in the air with United alone. That does not count any other airlines that I would have taken on side trips or elsewhere where I had to travel. And because we weren't set up for remote work back then, and it was more the exception. And, at that time, the expectation was to be in the office. And so it's completely flipped today where if you wanted to hire me today, I could operate from Florida seamlessly. In fact, I work with people all over the world seamlessly. It makes no difference where you're located, actually.
That is correct, right? Technology today has bridged that gap from the physicality of being distanced. Now you can be halfway around the world, and yet you're still like this. We're almost virtually neighbors.
Yes. So what do you feel are the biggest changes you've seen in customer expectations since the pandemic, and how have the best support organizations adapted?
Well, there's like a couple of things, right? One from being the remote work. Now everyone's not next door to you. You just can't walk up to someone and tap them on the shoulder, or just go down the hallway to your IT organization. Now everyone's kind of remote or hybrid. I think that there is a change since the pandemic. Now there are a lot of companies, as you know, are forcing people back into the office, or at least a hybrid capacity. But the challenge is still the one-on-one FaceTime, but you have to have technology that allows you to be close to, and perform as well. And it's kind of funny. It's like sometimes I'm in the office and we'll have meetings, and then some of the people that are in my meetings are physically in the office, but they opt because so used to using Zoom or Teams or some digital way of meeting. They're in the building, but yet they're more comfortable on Zoom or on Teams, right? So it's definitely a challenge and change, but it's now technology has to catch up to that. And then on now we have the newest wave, right? We talk about AI, and everything else is changing. The expectations are different. Before, we're always looking for one-on-one FaceTime people. You're more comfortable
Right.
talking to someone. Technology changed that. So now you have to look at, is technology catching up to a point where you're comfortable talking to an AI, right? I mean, you can go to your Gemini and you can have therapy sessions with AI. And some people are comfortable having those conversations with an AI and knowing that you're actually talking to an AI, but sometimes they forget that they are actually talking to an AI. So I think that's where things are changing to the new wave of technology, where it's about AI. It's the information on your fingertips than it was in the past.
So you now serve as president of HDI San Francisco Bay Area. Well, first of all, define HDI and then tell me what the organization's mission is and what kind of work are you most proud of there?
Well, what we do there, HDI, which is our help desk chapters, they're a nonprofit organization. We have over about 30 chapters now nationwide. We're also a global organization. So there is the HDI, that we have organizations around the world. And our charter is building a community for like-minded people that are in technology, like in services and service desks and help desks, to provide that community to bounce ideas, to have, we do a lot of trainings, certifications as well, but local chapters, we're trying to bring people together, whether it's virtually, and nowadays we're doing both in person and virtual.
So looking back at your experience across startups and enterprise environments, what's the most important lesson you've learned about scaling support organizations?
Well, it's consistency, right? It's about knowing the business, understanding the need. What did you actually trying to accomplish? Versus, you're trying to build something and hoping that it'll fit a model, but you need to understand the landscape and be able to charter that. That's the mission that you're looking for, right? And be able to accommodate and be able to customize to those needs. And that's the key, I think, for success.
You know, when I think about remote and some of the challenges, how do you cultivate a culture of continuous improvement within support, especially when you are remote or spread across time zones?
You gotta have that desire, right? It's about, you asked me at the beginning, it's like, why be in support or services for this many decades, right? It's a DNA. You really want to be able to be a servant. You have to be a server in some capacity. And you have to enjoy doing that. And that's the DNA. So that keeps why we do, or why I do what I continue to do, is getting that gratification or that satisfaction that you're helping people, that you're providing a service, and you're hoping that you're making their lives a lot easier because of what you are trying to help contribute to. So that continues to what I strive to do.
So I teach a business operating system called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And you said something that's really important, and you're talking about that DNA, that attitude, that genuine quality of wanting to be a servant, to help, to solve problems, to be effective at that. You can see here one of the 6 components that we talk about and teach with the EOS model is what we call people. And it's about getting the right people in the right seats. How do you go about identifying those attributes, those qualities of candidates that you are interviewing for potential roles with you? How do you get that out of them? How do you define that I have a service attitude, that I have a desire to do that? That's in my DNA. How do you identify that?
Well, just do conversation, right? You have to have some skill sets that's beyond the technical capacity. We sometimes, as being technical leaders, you get too enthralled into technology. Like, do you know, the OSI model? Do you know networking? Do you know all these different technologies? Do you know Python and all that? You kind of lose the basics of this is the DNA we talked about. It's the communications. So when I do a lot of the interviews and recruiting, I try to find out their personality, how they operate more than what they actually know. It's really about the mechanisms of how do I communicate? Do I have the right acumen and the sensitivity? All those things builds up that it's not necessarily always on paper. It's about your operating. It's how your DNA works. Do I stay up late at night thinking about that one customer that I couldn't solve yet? Do I still think of solutions that I need to first thing in the morning? I'm going to call Jim early in the morning because I think I got an answer, because that's the DNA that you need versus like, you know what? First in, first out. I'm just doing this as a ticket base and I'm not looking at versus ticket versus people. And that's a kind of a identification you want to do when you do interviews, that you get that connection from the person you're trying to recruit that has that DNA. It's not about tickets. You're not in the business to closing tickets. You're in the business about people. It's about helping and solving and advocating for people. So that's how I look.
You mentioned Python, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to define what Python is, because I'm sitting in Southwest Florida and we are surrounded by Pythons. But I'd like to have you define what you meant with the word Python.
Well, it's a programming language that a lot of people use. But yeah, it's not the snake reptile
Right.
type, but it could be kind of like snakes, right? Because coding in Python can sometimes get a little hairy, but it's a programming language.
Well, you could also argue that we both worked at Lyris and there are plenty of snakes there too.
They can be, right? Like any business, there is always the landscape of how to navigate through the land of snakes, right?
Anybody I'm still connected with from Lyris, you're not a snake. I'm referring to people I'm no longer connected with.
That's funny.
So we'll get back to being serious again. So
Yes.
what technologies or tools have genuinely improved customer experience versus the ones that overpromise?
Or the biggest thing right now, the 2-letter word, the AI. And right now, you look at the tool,
Yeah.
and just being in this industry, how many companies that are just sprouted that are some AI something, and it is a great technology and tool, but you need to know how to harness it and be able to direct it and be able to utilize it in its capacity. And we're still learning. So we're at I think the first layer, the scratching the surface of what the capabilities of AI. So that's the tool that I think helped us. And I kind of refer to this sometimes, like we're like on our third wave of technology. And I mean that from back in the day, we didn't have internet. So we had bulletin boards. We didn't have Windows, right? We didn't have Mac OS. We had Unix and Sun Microsystem, a lot of different. That's the world I came from, right? Working on compact and wise systems and stuff like that. And now we're at this stage where internet opened up, and now Netscape, Explorer came around, and you're looking at how that wave changes the whole dynamics of the world. And now we're at AI, where you don't have to go and search things anymore traditionally go to your KB articles, or you go tap the shoulder of your most tenured support agent that was been there for 10 plus years and have all this tribal knowledge. If you capture that properly into some form of knowledge base, whether you're moving from KCS, the knowledge centered type of system, into AI, you have knowledge in your fingertips. Just know how to prompt properly and correctly. The world is on your fingertips.
So you've managed technical escalation teams for years. What advice do you give leaders when everything is on fire and the stakes are high?
Don't ever take it personally. Honestly, it's end of the day. If you approach it with your methodology, you approach it with calmness and take the emotions out of it, and then take step 1 through step 10, you can be successful doing that. So escalations come in. I don't take it personally. It's about the person has a need, and how can I help bridge that gap? And that's how I approach things. And people get emotional. We're all humans. I'm human. You're human. And people will get emotional, and I get it. Let them vent, but I'm always listening. And then together, we can hopefully be able to solve whatever the escalation, the situation, the urgency. And that has served me well for over 3+ decades.
For younger professionals starting in help desk or customer success roles, what steps can they take today to grow into leadership positions like yours?
It's a lifelong learning journey. Even to this day, I'm learning about AI, right? So to be in leadership, it's not about, like in the past, some people would think, well, I'm going to become the boss. I'm going to just be the big honcho and I'm going to just bark orders, right? It's far from it. It's about collaboration. It's about ensuring you want your people to be successful. That's what makes great leaders. So beyond that, it's always about learning. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room or in the organization, but what you need to be is have that DNA that you're looking at. The end goal is success for everyone. If that's the case, then you can become a great leader, because you're looking at the end result, which is success for everyone. Not success for me, not success for you, but success for everyone. And by doing that, it allows you to be able to build on it. And then on top of that, it's about foundation. I have an architectural background, so you can't build a skyscraper if your foundation is not solid. So it's same thing with technology, and it being in this industry. If you have solid technology or foundations, whether it's customer service, technical side of it, you can build, and sky's the limit from there. But that's the key for me.
Which is probably what brought us together today. Not only have we worked together in the past and admired one another, but when you talk about that foundation, an operating system, a business operating system, like an EOS model, like I shared earlier in the conversation, having that infrastructure, that base, that single operating system that we can all have visibility and eventually traction as a team, that's what's going to spring you into place. And that's what led me to now being a teacher, a coach, and a facilitator. And from my perspective, that's true leadership. When you can say, hey, I'm a coach, I'm good at facilitating, and I can now teach you what I learned. That's what being a good leader is all about. And I think for younger people to aspire to that would be a huge plus in your career. Well, Stephen, I want to thank you for sharing your experience and perspective. It's clear that customer support isn't just about solving problems. It's about building trust, improving systems, and developing people. For anyone who wants to connect or learn more about your work, visit splashtop.com or find Stephen Ng on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us on Growth Ceilings Podcast. I'm Jim Lovelady, professional EOS implementer. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been watching the Growth Ceilings Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's ready to grow.